For some reason, I can't seem to get that Dropkick Murphys song out of my head as we make this video. You know, shipping up to Boston. Let's talk today about the Vancouver Canucks and the Boston Bruins and some trade targets that have been highlighted in different parts of the media the past few days that I think make for some interesting conversation. So, we're heading over onto the province, talking about an article published by Patrick Johnston, and we're also going over a radio hit done by Frank Saravalli here on Sportsnet 650. They both go over two different names on the Canucks roster that might be linked to Boston in some way. So, without further ado, let's head over on to, when was this article published? November 19th, so 4 days ago. Patrick Johnston writes about the Canucks and how there's no shortage of trade candidates if the front office can find a dance partner. Pretty much, this is a piece going over the different players on the Canucks and how they could all get traded because the team needs to make some trades. I know they won yesterday against the Colorado Avalanche, but still, the direction is quite common here. Let's go over on to what he writes about when it comes to the middle of the article here, talking about Canucks forward Conor Garland. A player the Leafs are likely much more interested in is Conor Garland, though how they'd fit him under the salary cap is a bit less clear. The plucky winger has been a fan favorite and has been a solid point producer with 3 goals and 6 assists in 17 games this season. But how happy is he in Van? On the ice, there was success in the second half of the season, but the team still didn't make the playoffs, and there's been plenty of off-ice tumult. Garland is building a home in the Boston area near where he grew up. Although he signed a 5-year deal with the Canucks before last season worth $4.95 a year, multiple sources confirmed to Post Media that he would be amenable to a move closer to home. The Coyotes were after a first-round pick when he was on the market, yada yada yada, that kind of opens up some wounds there. Could the Canucks pry a pick back for him? Rutherford's feeling is GM Patrick Allvin should be looking for players rather than draft picks in the trades that they make. Next up, we have ourselves a radio hit done by Frank Saravalli on Sportsnet 650. Take a look at this right here. When it comes to Canucks captain Bo Horvat, I'll throw one team at you, the Boston Bruins. They're a team that's well geared for playoff success with the start of the season they've had, but who's going to be their long-term fit down the middle? Horvat would be a great fit. And so, we're talking about Conor Garland, and we're talking about Bo Horvat here as Vancouver-Boston trade pieces to be, potentially. And when it comes to both of these guys, one of them makes a lot more sense than the other, and I think it should be pretty obvious to see which one is there. Conor Garland is the one that I feel makes a lot more sense and is a lot more plausible too, when you consider what the Boston Bruins actually have and how much these assets should be costing on the trade market. For Conor Garland, he is not as strong of a player as Bo Horvat, therefore it's a lot easier to think about the Vancouver Canucks departing with Garland and getting a more modest return for him. Garland is signed till the end of 2026, making that $4.95, and he's kind of in the middle of his prime, 26 years old, and he had 52 points in 77 games last year. Now, this season, he's on pace for a lot fewer points. He's got 9 points in 19, which is on pace for 39 in 81. And, I feel like this season's worth of play is a lot more back down to earth, dare I say, when it comes to the way Conor Garland has performed, because even though he did have that 39-point and 49-game season in 2020-2021 with the Coyotes, and the season after that last year where he had 50 points, Conor Garland was always just seen as a shifty, middle six-ish caliber forward that could maybe play in the top 6 once in a while if you needed him to, who had some offensive flair and he works really hard, and he had some really good snipes once in a while too. But Conor Garland, for the most part, I feel just from watching this season's worth of play, has been one of the more ineffective forwards on the team when it comes to creating offense. I don't know what it is, but I feel like Garland this season has dumped the puck into the corner for a change more so than he's ever had before. And when it comes to the offensive zone creativity, we haven't really seen it there this season. You know? Last year, I feel like Conor Garland was actually a better player under Travis Green than he was under Bruce Boudreau because he was scoring goals left, right, and center. He seemed like the only ray of hope the Canucks had on last season's worth of play in the first half. But either way, because of Garland and the way that he's been playing, it's a lot easier to think about the idea of moving him. If the Canucks are able to get, let's say, a first-round pick or something, then hey, bite the bullet, take it. Garland's a good player, and he'll probably help out some team going out there and acquiring his services, especially if that team is his hometown Boston Bruins. But let's just say a first or whatever, I feel like that's good enough for me to think about trading him away. It's just, as Johnston highlighted, this Canucks staff does not seem to be all too keen with acquiring draft picks. They want to get young players, not draft picks per se. I disagree with that philosophy, but either way, it appears to be what it appears to be. Now going over onto the other conversation. When it comes to Bo Horvat, I feel like this is not going to happen, nor is it something that I feel like you should even be thinking about, because I feel like the Boston Bruins don't have the assets to make a Bo Horvat trade actually work. Unless they went out there and started unloading every one of their younger prospects that actually has value, they're not acquiring Horvat for the same price that any other team could be acquiring Horvat for too. A first, plus Fabian Lysell, plus a defenseman prospect that happens to be right-handed. I'm not talking about Jonathan Mierenberg, but I don't think Bo Horvat is somebody the Boston Bruins could afford. He's also in his prime, 27 years old, making $5.5 till the end of this season, and I mean, if he comes with a contract extension, that should be a pretty valuable asset to any team acquiring him, but Bo this season has 16 goals in 20 games and 22 points. He's on pace for 91 points, and he has the most goals in the league right now. Tied with Connor McDavid and Jason Robertson, he is on pace for 66 goals. Bo is going to win the Rocket Richard this year. Okay, no, I'm not going to say that for sure. It's kind of wild to me that he's at 16 already. I mean, take a look at the rest of his goal scoring throughout the years. He's been at 27 to 22 to 19 to 31 goals, and now he's at 16 in 20 games played, on pace for 66. This guy has completely taken a brand new level when it comes to his goal scoring, that we might see some sort of that JT Miller-esque flavoring when it comes to the trade conversations, because I feel like for Miller, last year, if you wanted to trade JT Miller, it would have been a lot easier to do that at the beginning of the season when the team was struggling really hard and when Miller was producing, but there was still this doom and gloom sort of vibe on the team. If, in October, they wanted to trade away Miller, they probably could have done so and gotten away with it with no qualms. However, towards the end of the year, Miller had 99 points, so it became a lot more difficult to find a trade package that was actually manageable in the eyes of Alvin, Rutherford, and company. Miller's play and point production priced him out of the range that many of these other teams were willing to pay, and I feel like for Bo, with his start to the season, might be doing somewhat of a similar thing. Boston is not the team that I think about when it comes to teams that have the assets to trade for Horvat. They really only have like 3 prospects that I actually think are interesting enough to talk about. Fabian Lysell, of course, with the Providence Bruins. Georgi Merkulov is there too. He's producing pretty well. And then you have Matthew Poitras, who's doing his thing in the OHL. But aside from that, I mean, you're really going to have to lay on the draft picks if you wanted to really convince me that a Bo Horvat Boston Bruins trade is actually possible. Unless there's like a really big name right-handed defenseman coming back the other way, and we know the Bruins are not going to be trading Charlie McAvoy anytime soon, so probably not going to go out there and do that. And so, realistically, I think Conor Garland is the one that the Boston Bruins might be able to actually pry away from Vancouver because his price wouldn't be too high. But you can let me know in the comments your thoughts about this idea, and if you feel like the Canucks and Bruins should be making some more trades. We already saw them make one with the DiPietro-Mierenberg swap, but at the end of the day, this was a minor deal. It involved prospects that were kind of looking for changes of scenery, and I mean, one of them wasn't really. He was just kind of an extra throw-in there. Cough, cough, Mierenberg, who happens to also be right-handed. But for a main roster trade, I wanted to see what your opinions were on that. Conor Garland, Bo Horvat, one of these guys, both of these guys even, shipping up to Boston. I'm trying really hard to make a pun with that Dropkick Murphy song, but at the same time, I mean, there's really only like 4 lines in that song. I'm a sailor peg and I lost my leg, climbing up the top sails, I lost my leg. That's it. Then the song repeats. So, no musical pun this time around, unfortunately, but either way, talk to the comments your thoughts about Bo Horvat and Conor Garland. If they did get traded over to a team like Boston, what are you expecting in return? Furthermore, even if it's not Boston, what do you think these guys are worth on the market just in general? I feel like Garland's worth a little bit less than he was last year, and Bo is worth a lot more, but that's just my personal opinion. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 9, and bye.